guns were originally made for killing people and not for like protecting. Like when they were originally invented, they were made for hurting other people instead of for protecting oneself. And 268 people are shot a day. And guns promote violence. And when they're in homes, they're more likely used for killing somebody in the home or like homicide or something rather than for protection. And accidental deaths happen a lot, especially when children get a hold of guns. And Canada has strict gun laws, so they say you can only have one certain type of gun and their crime rate is very low. So that is good, and we should probably look into that since they have such a low crime rate. And massive tolls on taxpayers because of all the medical treatment used for people who are shot with firearms every single day. And a lot of children are affected too because they have seen gun shootings or even been shot themselves because like a lot of children are shot a day. And I think it was 1 out of 14 children have actually seen or witnessed a gun shooting. So yeah.
Alright, so, all in all, we have come to a conclusion that banning guns is rather pointless to our society. People will always have the access to obtain a firearm, whether it's legally or illegally. Sure, guns were invented as a very violent weapon, but that purpose was to defend themselves from a threat or an enemy. Guns don't have a brain. Guns don't sprout legs and go on a mad shooting spree. Guns do not kill people. People kill people with guns. Let's say a man were to walk into a bar, shoot someone, and then walk out. Let's say he feels oddly compelled to do it again. The police can't find who did it, so they decide to strict down gun laws in that area. Doing things like that won't be any benefit to our society. So instead of focusing on the weapon used for the crime, we need to pay more attention to the people that pulled the trigger. We have to think on a large scale if an act like this were to be passed. But as we take a look at the past, present, and future, we can clearly see that banning an item, especially as big as a gun, will cause numerous problems that are not ready to be fixed.
That was very confident. Stop.
Okay, who's taking the question?
Still recording, guys, just so you know.
Is there a specific amount of time for the question?
It's up to 90 seconds to respond, but you don't respond to that.
Wait, question. It's all about this. He's looking for it. That's my okay too.
In 1999, shortly after the massacre at Columbine High School, the National Rifle Association said it approved of instant background checks at gun shows. It even began a national advertising campaign that supported universal background checks before purchasing guns. Last year, as this measure neared a vote in the Senate, the NRA officially withdrew its support, even though polls showed more than 85% of the nation supported these checks. What is your position on the NRA's stand against universal background checks, and what, if anything, should be done to change their stand?
Well, our group thinks that would be of little, if any, point to do a background check because people who have a motive to put harm against somebody will go to any length to do it. That's all.
All right, someone like to respond to that, please, on the other side?
Am I supposed to be going against the question or against Garrison?
Respond to his, yeah. The question's on your side, so you're responding to what he said, rebutting what he said.
So what we should do is, I think it's a good idea to have these background checks at shows, because many people could bring like illegal guns to these areas. Maybe they have like some sort of mod to it that can make it more dangerous to a crowd. And the checks can also show like the background history of the gun shooter and how has he reacted with the gun and if he's trustworthy to hold the gun. And a crazy person wouldn't be allowed, in response to Garrison, a crazy person wouldn't be allowed into the gun show without a background check. So this background check prevents people like that coming into the gun show.
Thank you very much. So who's gonna take the question over here? Critics of a universal background check say background checks will be meaningless without universal registration. In other words, a system whereby all gun owners must register their weapons to make them known to law enforcement. Opponents say this will open the door to police having the ability to confiscate weapons for any number of reasons, legal or otherwise, of potential infringement upon Second Amendment rights. How do you believe universal background checks can possibly work if we don't actually know who has what weapons?
Going along with what the Second Amendment states, it states that we all have the right to bear arms, and I believe that we do, but we should have background checks towards it, and that the law enforcement knowing what model number of the gun or something of that sort would help keep like the record of the person with the gun intact. And the background checks, and people who are saying this would make police having a reason to take their weapons for maybe some sort of unknown reason that may not be right is not true, because police have to have a reason unless if they have like it's not really an infringement on the rights, because we need to know where the gun is and if it's used in the right way, such as personal defense or some other sort like that.
Okay. All right, who would like to respond?
So, people say that these background checks will help keep people who are going to use guns potentially for something harmful towards others, will keep them out. But with universal background checks, they can't always know who has a gun, and considering the fact that we already have, some people already have guns registered, or even not registered, it'll be easy for them to get by, because there's nothing saying that they have to register for these background checks. They may buy guns, but they could have bought it before these background checks, so they could still have guns.
Okay then, so that will conclude.